new season of anime and all the new shows coming out, I've noticed that anime fans in North America seem to fall under several categories based on how they decide what it is they want to watch. First, you have the crazy, insane people that watch everything. Then there are the cautious kinds who wait a few weeks and then only watch the shows that have been generally agreed upon to be good. And then there are the people who hawk over the season chart and pick about 5 to 10 shows that pique their interest. I fall into the latter category. However, I have this habit of dropping shows as the season progresses, so that by the end of it, I am firmly in the second category, only finishing up the shows that are generally perceived to be good. But every season I always find myself finishing at least one other show. A show that maybe not many others finished, usually because they dropped it early on, or it just wasn't their thing. It's never necessarily a good show, it's just something that is different from everything else that I've been watching. Like a harem-based show, but the protagonist is a shut-in otaku thrown into a fantasy universe to teach the local residents his masterful otaku ways? Sure! Magical dolls, alternate dimension traveling, and a protagonist who interacts with his alternate dimension younger self? Perfect. So, coming across a show that has a very stereotypical knight in shining armor plus a damsel in distress relationship, but the gender roles are reversed and everybody has magical powers to make things explode? Yeah, why not? Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection today. Witchcraft works. Let's jam. So we have our main character Takamiya, who is living a rather ordinary life, one with a few annoyances, all of which revolve around one thing. A girl, Kageri, the student council president and resident hottest girl in school character. So popular with the other girls in school that they crowd the bus she travels on, the hallways she walks in, and of course the area surrounding her desk, conveniently right next to Takamiya. But one day, when for no reason one of the towers of the school is flung into the air and threatens to send our hero to the afterlife, he is saved by none other than Kageri. Kageri reveals herself to be a fire witch from a group referred to as the Workshop, who has been spending the last several months of school undercover, as it were, to protect Takamiya from another group of witches known as Tower Witches and their bunny-shaped familiars who wish to take some secret magic that he apparently had locked away inside of him. Over the course of the series, the two of them get locked into various situations that range from attempted comedy to an ever-growing menace that threatens the life of everyone in the whole city. This is all because Takamiya has the spirit of some godlike witch called Vermilion locked away inside him with magical barriers and spells that must never, ever be broken. I don't have a problem with that part of the story, because it is quite promising, but it has many flaws. At no point are we given much explanation as to why Takamiya is the host for Vermilion, nor how he has lived all of his life up until high school without knowing about the magical world at all. It's hinted that at one point he knew, but for yet another unexplained reason he had his memories wiped. Another problem is that the show lacks a central villain. Sure, there are 3 characters introduced with various power levels that could be considered the show's villains, but only for the storylines that they happen to be the focus of. The show as a whole has no one villain, as they all want Takamiya's power, which makes things difficult when trying to portray the balance of power, since all 3 of them have to come off as equally dangerous, not that it matters because at the end of the day, everything must return to the status quo. I'm not sure if it's because that's how the original material did it, or maybe the show's producers are just hopeful for a second season, but when the final credits roll, nothing really has changed after episode 1. There is no sense that anything meaningful actually happened, so you have to ask yourself, was it at least enjoyable? Well, yes. Takamiya is almost, I would say, the best representation of the role he has been given, but that in and of itself highlights just what is wrong with the role in the first place. Takamiya is the show's damsel in distress, unable to properly defend himself against the majority of the show's enemies without Kageri to come in and whip their asses for him. She even refers to him as her princess from time to time and conducts herself like a royal knight would, protecting royalty. Because of his role, however, Takamiya is ridiculously bland. It's like having oatmeal when only the day before you had oatmeal with fruit and brown sugar and a side of bacon for good measure. You can still get that hint that those extras are supposed to be there, but they just aren't. I can't fault him for it either, as that's exactly what he's supposed to be. The powerless protagonist who feels like he needs to get stronger so as to not need protecting anymore. Except he still kinda does. It's just very unfulfilling. Kagari herself is almost the exact same way. A loyal protector to a fault, she goes through life and limb to protect her charge. One thing I found majorly refreshing about her, though, is her take-no-shit attitude when it comes to fighting. Her approach to fighting is what should be referred to as the Indiana Jones fighting style. Use the most effective and powerful move up front and end the fight as quickly as possible. Sure, in some situations that doesn't always work, but for the most part, it's just burn all the things. What made the characters good, though, was the secondary characters. You know, the ones that actually had quirky personalities that had to be dealt with. From magical explosive experts, Medusa, and a ragtag band of magical Team Rocket grunts complete with their own blasting off sequences. Personality-wise, they didn't have much, more than likely due to lack of time, but they proved entertaining enough to add some flavor to the otherwise bland main cast. I'll give the show one thing without any reservations. It looks really good. It's one of the few times I've actually enjoyed the use of 3D footage integrated with 2D in a long time. The fight scenes in particular were really well done, and the show, like most other comedies, was able to flow between the serious-looking animations to the more comical styles without too much trouble. Though that part never happened in 3D, thankfully, as it has been proved elsewhere not to work. The soundtrack is interesting mainly because I'm not actually sure if there was an official composer. I couldn't find anyone listed as such anywhere on the internet. Best I could find was a news article that said the music was done by Techno Boys Pullcraft Green Fund. But that's about it. The music itself was decent enough though, mostly orchestral music that supplemented the scenes quite nicely. Though nothing that stood out specifically, with the exception of the show's ending. The ending is a delightfully addictive song by the members of the aforementioned magical Team Rocket group, with little chibi versions of them constantly tortured in classic ways reminiscent of the old witch hunts of the Middle Ages. It's cute, and again, that song will never leave my head. So the ultimate question of the day is, why should you watch this series? Well, I don't have a very compelling answer for you. The characters are bland, the story, while interesting, is ultimately predictable, and by the end of it, nothing really happens, because everything is magically MacGuffined back to the status quo at the end of the final episode. Sure, the journey to the end is enjoyable enough, otherwise I doubt I would have finished it all the way to the end, but most people will probably want to give it a pass. It's nice as a breather, as something to intersperse with whatever else you're watching, anime or otherwise. I wish it had gone deeper, is the thing, because it has its hints. It alludes to a deeper meaning and backstory behind basically everything, but it never expands upon it. Major props to the reversal of gender roles, by the way, as that was thoroughly enjoyable, and I would almost say that the series is it's like a shonen series, but with all the male characters, female characters, if that makes sense. So, at the very least, it's interesting. And interesting is all I ever asked or expected of it. And as such, it did just fine. And so, with all that in mind, I have meticulously calculated values for the categories of story, characters, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, which, after lighting it on fire, magically reversing the burn damage, and then lighting it on fire again, has me awarding Witchcraft Works with an overall score of 6.84 out of 10, and an overall recommendation to stream it rather than buy. As something that I can only say really works as fluff material to entertain you during some free time, I can't in good conscience tell people to purchase it if they are ever given the option to. However, it's not entirely unredeemable either, and the general reversal alone is reason enough to check it out, even if you ultimately don't enjoy the series. At the time of this video, Witchcraft Works is unlicensed in North America and elsewhere, apparently. However, if you're lucky enough to live in a location where you have access to Crunchyroll, you can find the entire series freely available there for legal streaming. And as usual, if you click on the link in the description, glassreflection.net/Crunchyroll, you can sign up for a free trial of their premium services and all the anime awesomeness that it contains. For alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards Hayore Naruko-san, another piece of fluff entertainment full of personifications of the demonic H.P. Lovecraft demons, and more pop culture references than you could shake a squid at. Speaking of, Squid Girl, an aquatic being that comes to land with the intent of conquering the planet. Hilarity ensues. Between those, you should hopefully find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.